My mom blew thousands of my inheritance on my spoiled sister's wedding, so I froze the account and ruined their plans. I'm stuck in a weird spot right now. It's not exactly a problem, more like a crossroads. See, my mom and younger sister have taken advantage of me for as long as I can remember, but lately, it's gotten completely out of hand. I've been thinking seriously about cutting ties with them, but that would basically mean leaving them broke. And as much as I'm fed up, I'm not heartless. I'm 38, married with 2 kids, and I've been living out here in Oak Ridge, Ohio for the past 6 years, ever since I got married. Originally, I'm from a small neighborhood down in Weston, Texas. My childhood wasn't exactly a fairy tale. My parents divorced when I was 10, and things got messy. My dad accused my mom of cheating. It's still unclear whether that was ever true or just bitterness talking. Mom never remarried, which only added to the mystery. Back when it all went down, I was 10 and my sister, Lena, was 5. People used to whisper that my dad didn't think Lena was really his, and that's what pushed him to file for a divorce. As part of the settlement, my mom got to keep our old house, and Dad moved out. Now here's where things get complicated. Dad agreed to cover my education expenses, but he never paid anything toward Lena's. He didn't send a single dime of child support for her, and I never understood why my mom didn't push back legally. Maybe that's why everyone believed there was truth behind the accusation about Lena not being his kid. Dad wasn't really around while I was growing up. He'd show up now and then to pay my school fees or drop off a gift, but that was about it. Things only changed when I reached high school. I reached out, and from then on, he was part of my life again. He even came to my wedding, even though Mom was totally against it. Over time, I grew much closer to my dad than I ever was with Mom. He even came to visit us here in Ohio a couple of times after I settled down. But that didn't last forever. A couple of years ago, he was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and we lost him last year. Mom was never happy about how close I'd become with Dad, and when she found out that he named me as his sole heir, she went cold as ice. Dad had remarried years after splitting from Mom, but he never had any kids from that second marriage. He always told me, "You're my only daughter," and he meant it. Naturally, that didn't sit well with Mom or Lena. They couldn't stand the fact that Dad left everything to me, including a trust fund worth about $400,000. But honestly, it wasn't just about the money. All through my childhood, Dad supported me, paid for a better school, sent me to a good college, while Lena had to do without. Since I was already 10 when the divorce happened, the child support and education payments came directly to my name or straight to the schools. By the time I turned 12, my mom couldn't fully control those funds. She did, however, use some of the support money on Lena and to keep the house running. I wasn't clueless. I knew she was doing it, so she made sure to keep me happy so I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't call them cruel exactly, but it was obvious they didn't like me much. They were a tight team, and I always felt like the outsider. Still, I wasn't someone they could easily manipulate. Even as a kid, I was sharp. Not just book smart, but street smart too. I think that's part of why Mom never dared to treat me too badly. Fast forward to today, and that trust fund Dad left me has become the root of a new storm. The second they found out I inherited it, they started coming after me for money. The thing is, this wasn't new behavior. Ever since I landed my first job, they've leaned on me for financial help. And the more I earned, the more their needs seemed to grow. I don't really owe them anything, but I kept helping out anyway because, well, they're family, and their jobs don't pay much. Mom works the register at a small grocery store, and Lena's doing sales at a local boutique. Together, they don't even make half of what I bring home. So yeah, I felt like I had to help, even though we've never been all that close emotionally. At least they were never outwardly nasty to me, so I tried to stay fair. But a couple of months ago, things took a turn. Mom called me and said she wanted to fix up the house. Apparently, the place had gone to ruin. Cracked ceilings, busted walls, faulty wiring. All of it had been ignored for years. She told me it felt unsafe during heavy rain or storms, like the whole thing might cave in. She even went to the bank, but said the interest rates on loans were too high. I could tell she was dancing around what she really wanted, for me to cover the cost, but neither of us said it outright during that call. Afterward, I started dodging her calls. She doesn't usually contact me much, maybe once a month. But that month, she rang me at least 4 times. Eventually, I picked up. This time, she dropped the hint and just asked directly. Said the house was practically falling apart and they couldn't live like that anymore. She promised to pay me back in installments, so I asked how much she needed. $100,000, she said. I nearly lost it. That was way too much to just hand over. I told her I didn't have that kind of money. But then she brought up the inheritance. That's when I got angry. I didn't want to go there, so I shut that part of the conversation down. I told her the most I could possibly spare was $50,000. She agreed. Later, I realized I'd made a huge mistake. I'd acted too fast, lowered my guard, and offered way too much. I should have just said no or let it go to voicemail again. But now that I'd said it out loud, I felt stuck, like I had to follow through. And honestly, I didn't feel good about it at all. My husband came up with this plan. He suggested that instead of sending all the money at once, I should break it up into smaller chunks and only send the next part after seeing actual progress on the house. Sounded smart, so I told my mom I'd be transferring $50,000 in installments. I had this old dormant bank account from my time in Bay Ridge, and I decided to reactivate it. I moved $10,000 into that account and gave my mom access to that account. She was a little confused and asked why I didn't just send the money straight to her. I gave her some random excuse that didn't really make sense, but she didn't question it too much. Truth is, that whole setup was my husband's idea. I figured it was worth trying. Deep down, I hoped she'd pay me back eventually, though I didn't exactly hold my breath. Update 1. I can't quite explain it, but something just felt off. It's been 2 months since I started sending money to my mom for what was supposed to be house renovations. I've sent her $20,000 so far, and I've officially decided that's it, not another dime. I always had this sneaking suspicion that they were only being nice to me because of my money, but I never thought they'd go this far just to squeeze more out of me. If they'd just been honest from the start, I wouldn't be this hurt. Recently, I found out, not from my family, but through a school friend, that my sister is getting married. Yup, my friend's husband works as a wedding planner, and apparently my sister's been working with his agency to organize her grand celebration. That's literally what they've been calling it. I'm pretty sure my sister had no idea I even knew those people. And yeah, a wedding with a $50,000 price tag definitely counts as grand. What really stung, though, was that I didn't hear about it from my own family. Forget being invited, no one even told me it was happening. I thought maybe it was going to be a small, private affair. But my friend mentioned that the guest list was pushing 100 people. That hurt, not just emotionally, but it made me start questioning a lot of things. Where was all this money coming from? They booked one of the nicest venues in town, planned a full buffet with endless drinks, fancy decorations, the whole deal. Meanwhile, I checked the very account where I was sending money for this so-called house renovation, and it was completely drained. So I called my mom to ask if at least the renovation had started. She told me she'd hired a company, but the work hadn't kicked off yet. I couldn't handle the lies anymore. At that point, I still wasn't 100% sure if my money was going toward the wedding, but it all added up, and I felt sick just thinking about it. For a moment, I was tempted to fly back to Bay Ridge just to see everything for myself, but I realized it wouldn't change anything. Instead, I reached out to my aunt, my dad's sister, who lives just a few blocks away from my mom's place. I asked if she knew anything about my sister's wedding. She said she did, but she hadn't been invited either. My mom's always kept my dad's side of the family at a distance, so that didn't surprise me. But then my aunt said the wedding had become the biggest buzz in the neighborhood. She told me that just a couple years ago, their house looked like it was falling apart, and now, suddenly, it was freshly painted and looking brand new. That hit me like a ton of bricks. I remembered. About 6 months back, my mom had asked me for $20,000 for a knee replacement surgery. So I called her again, pretending one of my friends needed a recommendation for their dad's surgery. I asked her where she had the procedure done. She stumbled and mumbled, saying she couldn't remember the name. I pushed a little and asked for the hospital's name, any clinic or doctor, anything at all. But she just kept fumbling and eventually said she had a bad connection and hung up. When I tried calling again, her phone was off. Later, it rang, but she never picked up. I even texted her, but it stayed unread for days. That's when it all clicked. The money I gave her for her knee surgery went into fixing up the house, and now the money I'm supposedly sending for house repairs is going toward funding my sister's dream wedding. To make it worse, someone told me the engagement party was held right on the front lawn of the house, the same house they swore needed urgent repairs. They had wine flowing and everything decked out in fresh lilies. I felt like a total fool, like I'd been sitting in the dark while they were living it up behind my back. So I stopped everything. I cut them off cold. I didn't transfer another cent into that account. When my mom tried to call, I ignored her. When she texted, I didn't answer. Even my sister, who hadn't spoken to me in years, suddenly called me. I didn't pick up. I was done. No more lies, no more games. It's not about the money I make or the inheritance my dad left me and not them. That doesn't give them the right to milk me dry with fake sob stories. I made up my mind. I'm not letting this slide. I'll make sure their big day doesn't go off without consequences. Update 2. Turns out I was right to trust my gut. When they couldn't reach me, my mom called my husband. I had already told him not to engage, not to respond to anything, but of course he picked up anyway. She started crying on the phone, saying I'd ghosted them and how the house repairs were halfway done and I'd gone back on my word. And my husband? He spilled the beans. Just like that. I could have strangled him. He flat out told her I knew what was going on, that I found out the money wasn't being used for renovations and was actually paying for my sister's wedding. That's why I stopped sending money. I was furious. I wanted them to sit in that silence and feel the weight of what they'd done. But he gave them the closure they didn't deserve. He even told her I knew the knee surgery never happened, that the cash went into house repairs. After that, my phone lit up with messages from my mom. She kept calling, leaving long, apologetic voicemails. She claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that she had taken a loan from someone else for the renovations and was only using my money to pay them back. Another lie, clearly. Eventually, after endless missed calls and unread messages, I told her I'd be willing to talk, but only if she was finally ready to tell me the truth. She agreed to talk, so I gave her a call, and this time, she came clean. She admitted everything. My sister had always dreamed of having a big, fancy wedding, but they simply didn't have the money to pull it off. So they decided to get it from me, using the excuse of house renovations. Yep, that was my sister's idea. She figured I hadn't visited Ridgefield in ages and wasn't really in touch with anyone there, so there was no way I'd find out the house had already been fixed up. I asked why they didn't just tell me the truth and ask for help with the wedding directly. Her answer? My sister didn't want it to look like she was accepting a handout from me. She didn't want to owe me anything. Can you believe that? At that point, I flat out told her. I knew the money I sent for her so-called knee surgery was actually spent on the house. She went quiet, dead silent. I told her there was no point pretending anymore. I knew the whole story. That's when she finally explained that the house really was falling apart, and since my sister's soon-to-be in-laws were planning a visit, they had to rush the repairs. In their panic, they couldn't come up with a better excuse, so she told me she needed emergency surgery, and I, being the gullible daughter, wired her the money within hours. I kept my composure on the phone, but inside, I was shattered. My own mom tricked me. Not just once, but repeatedly. And for what? To throw a party and save face? I understand they were struggling, but that doesn't justify emotionally manipulating me just to get their way. After I got off the phone, I broke down. I cried for hours. I don't remember the last time I sobbed like that. Maybe when Dad passed away. I missed him so deeply in that moment. He was the only one who truly loved me for me, not for what I could give. A couple days later, I got a voicemail from my mom. Now that I knew everything, she said, could I please send the rest of the money so they could continue planning the wedding? I was disgusted. Like, actually sick to my stomach. There wasn't a trace of apology in her tone. No shame, no guilt. Just a cold request for more money. And to top it off, they still hadn't invited me to the wedding. Not even out of courtesy. Now that the truth was out, it felt even worse. I was done. I blocked both my mom and my sister right after that message. I even warned my husband. If he dared to respond to them again, he'd be spending the night out on the porch. In the cold. I wasn't joking. Meanwhile, I kept in touch with my aunt, and she told me the wedding was scheduled for next month. I didn't tell her about the money stuff, but it was clear that every day was getting harder for my mom and sister as they tried to hold this wedding together without my help. They kept calling, voicemails, texts. Even on the wedding day, they were still begging for money. But I didn't budge. I stood my ground. The last message my mom sent me that day, she said she was ashamed of me, that she was disowning me, that I should never call her mom again or show up at her house. That voicemail wrecked me. I collapsed in tears right in front of my husband. I know some people would say I was cold or heartless or selfish. Even my mom accused me of ruining my sister's big day. She called me arrogant and self-absorbed. But not once did she acknowledge her own lies. Not once did she take responsibility. I helped them because I loved them, because I thought we were family. But to them, I was just a walking wallet. Later that day, my friend called, the one whose husband had been hired to plan the wedding. She told me the whole thing was on the verge of being canceled. They hadn't paid the remaining installments. I asked how much they had already spent. She said they'd put down $20,000. That should have been enough for a nice wedding, honestly. But my sister had gone overboard with her demands. Top-tier decorations, gourmet catering, the fanciest location in town. Just the location itself cost around $20K. She asked if I was coming. I told her I had other plans and couldn't make it. She understood. She knew things weren't exactly warm between me and my family. Still, I couldn't help but feel guilty. It tore me up knowing I had a hand in derailing the wedding. For a moment, I even thought about wiring the rest of the money to my friend so the event could go on. But then I remembered that voicemail. My mother disowning me, like I was trash. Why should I keep giving when all they do is lie and take and discard me the moment I say no? I turned off my phone and took my kids out for the day. We went to the park, grabbed lunch, just tried to enjoy the day and stay distracted. The next day, my friend called again. She was fuming. Apparently, on the wedding day, my mom and sister begged her husband to still go through with it. Just a bare-bones setup, they said. Promised they'd send $10,000 more later. He did what he could,
threw together a modest setup with what he had left after the venue costs. But the guests, especially the groom's family, trashed the whole thing. They were not happy. And then my sister? She blamed it all on the wedding planner. Said it was his fault the whole event was ruined. My friend told me her husband was livid. He wanted to call them out publicly, but my mom pleaded with him not to destroy her daughter's life. He's a good man. He swallowed his pride, took the fall, and let the wedding happen anyway. And guess what? They still haven't paid him that extra $10,000 they promised. I was mortified, not even surprised, just deeply ashamed. I didn't know what to say. I stayed quiet while my friend vented. She wasn't blaming me, she just needed to talk. And I listened. Part of me felt sorry for what they went through, but I also couldn't forget how they threw him under the bus. They lied to me, used me, and now they were doing the same to someone else. My husband looked at me and said, "They brought this on themselves." And you know what? He was right. They built their fairy tale on lies and manipulation, and it all crumbled, because that's what happens when you try to fake a perfect life. At the end of the day, I'm glad I'm far away from all of it. Being disowned might have actually been a blessing. At least now, I don't have to deal with their schemes anymore. The night before all this hit the fan, we actually had dinner with my sister Chloe and her husband Nathan. It was one of those evenings where the wine kept flowing and everyone was in high spirits. We all drank more than we probably should have. After they left, my husband and I ended up getting intimate. It was passionate, tender, and honestly, one of the best nights we had in a long time. Afterward, neither of us felt sleepy, so we poured a little more wine, put on some soft music, and just sat there, soaking in the moment. I thought everything was perfect. He was smiling, relaxed, in a playful mood, which honestly is pretty typical for him when he's had a few too many. We started chatting about Chloe and Nathan, just casual stuff.
Then, out of nowhere, he dropped a bomb. With this faraway, almost dreamy look in his eyes, he said, "I'm so in love with Chloe." I froze. I was like, "Wait, what did you just say?" And he repeated it. "I'm seriously, madly in love with Chloe. I'd give anything just to kiss her." He was still smiling, still lost in whatever fantasy was playing in his head. I asked, "How drunk are you right now?" He just laughed and said, "Pretty drunk." I was buzzed too, but not so far gone that it didn't hit me like a freight train. I just sat there, completely silent, while he stared into the distance like he was picturing her face, that stupid grin still on his face. I didn't say another word. I got up and went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. And now the next morning, with the alcohol out of my system and my head clear, the weight of what he said crushed me even harder. I'm horrified. My heart feels like it's been torn to shreds. He hasn't mentioned it. He's walking around like everything's fine, still groggy from the hangover maybe, but acting completely normal. And I don't know what to do. On the surface, he's always had a good relationship with Chloe. Respectful, kind, nothing out of the ordinary. But now I'm questioning everything. Was it just drunken nonsense? Should I wait and see if he brings it up on his own? Does he even remember saying it? And then there's the part that really messes with my head. The way he was with me that night. During our time together, he was different. Softer, more affectionate than usual. He kept whispering, "I love you, you're incredible." It felt amazing, but now I can't stop wondering, who was he picturing when he said that? Chloe has always been kind of tomboyish and modest, but lately she's been on a health journey. Dropped nearly 55 pounds and started dressing with confidence. Last night she showed up in this sleek red dress, lipstick to match, and honestly, she looked stunning. We all complimented her and she seemed genuinely happy. I don't even know why I'm bringing this up. Maybe it's relevant. Maybe not. All I know is my thoughts are spiraling. There's that old saying, drunk minds speak sober thoughts, and I keep going back and forth on it. I do believe alcohol can cloud judgment, make people say wild things they don't mean. But then again, Would someone really confess love like that with such intensity unless there was something real beneath it? That's what scares me the most. Even if he denies it, how am I supposed to unhear those words? How do I look at him the same way again? How do I sit in the same room with him and my sister like nothing ever happened? I feel like even if we try to fix this, I'll carry this memory with me like a scar, one I can never fully erase. Honestly, if we're going to try and make this work, therapy is going to be a must, both as a couple and for me alone. Because even if this was just misplaced drunken emotion, it's messed me up. I wish I had better answers right now. I wish this never happened. For what it's worth, I know I'm not alone in this kind of pain. A friend once told me that her ex confessed his love for her twin sister, even said her name by mistake, claimed it was just a slip-up. It wasn't. He had feelings for the twin all along, and my friend was just the access point. That betrayal still haunts her. And in her case, the sister ended up dating him. That kind of family dynamic, it messes you up for life.
So, yeah, I need to talk to my husband today. I have to bring it up directly. Look him in the eye. Watch how he reacts. His face, his body language, it'll tell me more than his words ever could. He's always liked my family, especially Chloe. We're all close. We do holidays, weekends, even random cookouts together. But Chloe's been my best friend since we were kids. If it was just admiration or appreciation, I could maybe stomach that. But what he said, that wasn't some silly, slurred joke. That was deep, detailed, personal. And I think it only came out because the wine loosened his tongue and dropped his guard. I just can't believe this is happening. So, the site rules say no updates until 3 days pass, which is why I didn't share anything after Sunday. That, and honestly, I've been all over the place emotionally. But yeah, I talked to him. He told me he couldn't remember much from that night, especially after Chloe and Nathan left and we stayed up drinking. I told him what he said. He didn't look shocked, not even a little surprised, just blank. He said he didn't recall saying anything like that. I asked him straight up, "Did you feel that way before we started drinking?" He paused, then said something like, "I've always thought Chloe was lovely. She's warm and kind." And then he added, "She looked really beautiful the other night. Maybe drunk me just got caught up in the moment." He tried to brush it off, said it's normal to be curious sometimes about other people, that it doesn't mean anything. But I don't know. I really don't. He told me that he's always thought Chloe was beautiful, that all of my family is, really, but her recent weight loss gave her this whole new glow. She seemed more confident, more at ease in her own skin, and that made him genuinely happy for her. He insisted that was all it was. I pushed a little harder and asked him a question that had been eating away at me. If you had just met both of us, I wasn't your wife and she wasn't married, who would you choose? He looked stunned, like I'd just hit him with something completely out of left field. He said, "You're my wife, the mother of my kids. I love you." But I pressed again, purely hypothetical, but something I needed to know. If none of that mattered, no marriage, no kids, who would it be? He sighed and shook his head, said it was ridiculous, that he hated these kinds of imaginary what-if games because they always led to pointless arguments. He told me that he's always thought Chloe was beautiful, that all of my family is, really, but her recent weight loss gave her this whole new glow. She seemed more confident, more at ease in her own skin, and that made him genuinely happy for her. He insisted that was all it was. Pushed a little harder and asked him a question that had been eating away at me. If you had just met both of us, I wasn't your wife and she wasn't married, who would you choose? He sighed and shook his head, said it was ridiculous, that he hated these kinds of imaginary what-if games because they always led to pointless arguments. He told me that I'm making myself crazy over something that was said while I was too drunk to even remember what planet I was on. I love you. I'm happy with you. Please don't twist this into something it's not. And yet, I couldn't stop. I kept imagining myself in your shoes, wondering if I could really live with what I'd heard. I read all the advice, all the comments from people who've been through similar things. I know I need to see a therapist, alone, for my own sanity. Because here's the truth. It's been messing with my head. Every time he smiles at her or even mentions her name, I find myself questioning everything. Did he choose to be with me because he truly loves me, or because being married to me meant staying close to her? Was I the closest he could get? And that thought, that he might have used me as a stand-in for the passion he feels for her, that thought keeps playing in my head like a broken record. It won't stop. I can't stop thinking about how he touched me that night, how tender and passionate he was, and wondering if it was her he was picturing. That pain, it's like a stain I can't scrub off.
I want to feel close to him again. I want to trust what we have. But right now, I feel myself pulling away. Emotionally, physically. It's like something inside me shut off, and I don't know how to switch it back on. I overthink every little thing now. I second guess myself in every moment. Was that real affection or just a performance? And the worst part? I live minutes away from my sister. We've always been close. She's my best friend. She has no idea what happened. But I've caught myself watching her too now, picking apart how she talks to him, how he responds to her, if there's anything there I hadn't seen before. And every time he laughs at one of her jokes, or lights up when she walks in the room, I feel this little sting in my chest. Does he light up the same way when he sees me? I honestly don't know anymore. Maybe I'm imagining things now, or maybe I'm finally seeing what I never wanted to. There's no real coming back from this, is there? Even though he told me the feelings came and went over the years, that he never acted on them and never planned to, the fact that they were ever there at all, that he carried them with him silently, changes everything. We talked more the next night, really talked. I asked him if those feelings had been lingering long. He looked me in the eye and said yes, they've come and gone for years. But he swore he's never crossed a line, never planned to, and never will. He said he loves me, that our life, our family, that's what he wants. So we've decided to start counseling. We're going to try to work through this. But from now on, anytime I spend time with Chloe, he won't be there. That's the boundary. I don't know if it'll be enough, or if this fracture can ever fully heal, but I need to try. For me, for the truth, for whatever comes next.